Los Angeles, California. So all the pedigree stuff doesn't really matter because the part we don't put in the bio is the guy who stayed up until 3 in the morning getting leads for the business and figuring out how to get this thing called Google to work was me. So yes, on the front lines, I was the guy kind of dealing with clients, but getting the web forms filled out, getting the e-commerce, getting the carts done was all me. And it was through survival, necessity. You can't really go to school for this stuff. So what's at stake? Why do we want to do this? And it comes down to the two Al's. There's Al Pacino and there's another Al we're going to talk about. How many of you love football? Okay, how many of you saw the movie Any Given Sunday? How many of you remember the iconic locker room scene at halftime? We're getting killed out there. We got to stick together. We got to fight for every inch. And every one of those inches is going to become a touchdown. That's what search is like today. Everybody in here is the same. You're all democratized. And that's what Google has done is you can be up there against Amazon. You can be up there against big national and international and global resellers of cards. But you have just as much right and you have just as much power if you harness Google. So that's Al Pacino. Now it's what does it take? What does it take to get it? What does it take to win Pac-Man and to win Monopoly? And that comes to the algo. How many of you heard of the algo? Have any of you ever talked to a PPC or SEO digital agency that gave you a quote? I see you nodding your head back there. What was it, $5,000 a month? At least. How many of us can shell out $5,000 tomorrow? Like maybe you'll make some money, maybe you won't. And this is what they say, like, well, you know, the Google algo is very complex. It's 273 different data points, and you know, we do these different levers and these proprietary technologies so that we can get you better visibility on SEO. It's all hogwash. So Monopoly, how many of you crushed it at Monopoly? How many of you still play Monopoly? Okay, how do you crush it at Monopoly? Buy properties. How many times have you either known a rule that maybe another player didn't, or you go to the rules, something about the ability to mortgage or not mortgage, or you can't borrow money from players, or, you know, where's free parking? Where's all that money in the middle of free parking? You got to know the rules. You got to check the boxes and know the rules, and maybe if your opponents don't know all the rules, you do a little bit better than them. Because you all statistically have about the same chance. You all know, get out of the gate, buy as much property as you can. But somebody loses and somebody wins pretty big. So some of that is knowing the rules sometimes. And I remember arguments as kids and going back to the rule book, or we would agree we were making up our own rules and write those down on paper. But you've got to know the rules. You've got to know the data points. And then Pac-Man. How many of you play Pac-Man? Okay, so how many of you get every little point you can, and how many of you kind of advance and just go for the bigger points? How many kind of skip some of the points just to kind of get to the next level? Okay, so a couple of you. And then others are like, hey, I'm going to get every point on the board. And this is kind of like field mice and antelopes. Does anyone know this story? So Newt Gingrich came up with an article that he wrote after he left office. He had a consultancy, and he talked about opportunities, business opportunities. And what he talked about was lions out in the savannah. And lions have two food sources, field mice and antelopes. And what happens is that if you're a big lion and you wake up and you're like, I'm hungry, and you want to go eat, there's plenty of field mice. And you can go and you can kind of chase a field mouse and you can swat at it. You can maybe eat one, but you actually burn more calories chasing that field mouse than the caloric intake from eating the mouse. Now the antelope clearly is a bigger ROI, but it takes some strategy and it takes a little more time and a little more planning. So when you're doing this for yourselves, again, because you're the ones doing this, you're not hiring an agency, and you're up till 3 in the morning, ask yourself, am I going after field mice or am I going after antelopes?